Good Friday afternoon, everybody. And we got our buddy Matt here and plenty to talk about, my friend.
Absolutely. Things are lighting up right now, and very pleased to be on with you this morning and have a chat about it, Jim.
Well, it looks like the folks, first of all, let's get to the meat of it, and that is that the Save College Sports Act will probably not be voted on today. It is a little after noon on Friday here in the East Coast, and the Senate has two more bills they have to deal with today, and their goal is to get out of town by 4 or 5 o'clock. And one of those two bills is not um, the College Sports Act. So there's every reason to believe that they'll pick it up, but it's not going to be picked up until after the summer recess for them, which puts us back at a potential movement through the Senate in perhaps a little earlier, but likely mid-September.
Yeah, I really don't think that this makes it there. As you're saying, you've got all that in front of you, and also the chance of them getting everyone to agree on doing this over the weekend is pretty much nil, considering some of the hot button issues that the other votes are on. So I think we're starting to see the preparation for whatever might happen in September.
Yeah, they're not going to leapfrog their way into this. They're going to definitely take the time. As we were talking in the pre-show, the two senators from the Democratic side, and by the way, Cantwell, who was the co-sponsor with Tom Cruise, when I say Tom Cruise, Ted Cruz, from Washington is also a key person here. John Hickenlooper of Colorado and Chris Coons of Delaware, to me, were two of the key players here because they can rally the number of Democrats to get this thing across the line, which is 60. And then it goes to the House, and basically, chaos will reign supreme. I think a lot of it, because of the way the House works, is going to fall right on Speaker of the House Johnson's lap. The president wants it, so he's pretty much delivered on everything the president wants. But then again, all politics being local, you're going to have to look at each one of these areas where, we talked about it, Florida State and others, where the local politicians who, and we're talking about the congressional people, how they want to handle it.
Yeah, and we still have to kind of look back at what happened in the House with the previous bill, who killed it, and that they're still standing against this one right now. So, of course, other votes could go in other directions, but as it stands right now, I think we're seeing a lot of focus on, like, what's the Congressional Black Caucus going to do?
Sure.
And there was another group that I think came in to support this bill that maybe is meant to try to influence them. But even with, Trump pushing him, it's going to be an uphill battle in the House, because that's a much different monster than the Senate is. In the Senate, that's kind of predictable. Who senators are largely going to serve. Like with Senator Moody, talked about that with her being appointed for serving the state, which is Florida State. That's pretty predictable. When this thing goes to the House, it's much less predictable. These guys are serving their districts, and in turn, they might end up serving a group or whom is not from their district, just because they think it won't hurt them in their district.
Yeah, and again, when I think one of the keys, I should say, is most of these guys and women in the House are running for re-election. So what they do right now, with regard to how they handle it, um, because once the election is done, you've got um, a totally lame duck Congress, and we'll have to see how that plays. But the thing is, in a Democrats Republican situation, the bipartisanship in the Senate, they need a little bit of that in the House, and the key number is 218. So we got a long way to get there. They got to finish the Senate part of it first,
Yeah.
and if they can get it through that, then they drop it to the House, and God knows what happens. If the House changes anything, then it goes back to the Senate for debate. And so we're looking at, if they were lucky, this thing couldn't. I mean, maybe by, and this is if they're really lucky, maybe by Thanksgiving. If they're not fortunate enough and it goes into December, it's very likely that the next Congress will have to take it over.
Which basically just wipes your slate clean.
Yeah.
And I kind of wonder at some point in time, like when does this thing get to be considered voted down? Because that's when moves can happen, legal maneuvers. As it's just sitting there, you're really kind of maybe not sure if you're these parties, the conferences and schools. Do we act against it? Do we, sit and wait? Like if this doesn't make the vote and it sits there, do they legally feel like that's kind of a vote down? That's where my mind is going, because these amendments, they kind of tell us that there won't be movement because they're preparing for September. Like I was telling you, I think now I have to watch for something from like a Georgia senator or a North Carolina senator.
Mm-hmm.
It was a big deal for these folks to address the 19 and 5 situation. But we have the 5 situation being addressed by the folks from Florida, because that's what suits their purposes, their needs or whatever. But some of these others are going to have to approach this 19 thing, because, as I said, like that's a big stopping point, because it pretty much stops the Big Ten, in my opinion. I don't know what you feel about that. I don't think they necessarily want to go from 18 to 19.
I don't think they want to go anywhere.
So I think at some point in the future they wanted to go up to at least 20. But
well, I'll give you that one. Yeah.
But I don't think that they want to go to 19 and stop it, because then you're basically giving credence to this and you're bending to it. So if they're going to fight it at all, you can't.
Okay, but here's the thing I'm curious about.
Yeah.
Why do they want to fight it? This actually plays into their hands.
I'm saying, like, the cap. Like, I definitely think that one way or another they'd want to fight the cap, and they definitely want to fight the 5-year, because that basically stops anyone from being capable of moving.
Well, let's go this route, right? If it's 19 and it's all independent, the only person that they could add is Notre Dame.
Doesn't want to move, but I agree.
So it's kind of like, you know what? We're good with what we got, and if Notre Dame wants to join, they can. I just don't see. I don't see, and again, from the network standpoint, I don't see anybody who's going to get me, meaning the network, more excited because they're in one conference than they already have a coast-to-coast conference. There just doesn't seem to be schools out there, if I'm a network, that I want to see, especially if I'm ESPN. I don't want to see the ACC go away and get torn down, especially since I have no piece of the Big Ten.
Mm-hmm. I would say under the current situation, I 100% agree, because they've been straining the value of everything they have currently to the max. Like Washington, Oregon shows us this. I've always said that more expansion is 100% based upon them being able to push the rest of their agenda. You know, the new subdivision, having 2 CFP tournaments instead of 1. All these things, these are what create the broader revenue stream that would then be able to cover this. And so that's why I say, like, the 19 situation blocks that. So that hits that point of it, because you'd want to expand up to 20. I do honestly believe that the A4 would want to get back into divisions, because that would be tied in, like, the way their tournament would work in the end would be, you know, division champs. They're the ones that are talking about getting rid of conference championships. So they're going to have, like, their plans directly into the tournament. Well, if you can't have divisions because you're limited to a prime number of teams, that's a pretty big problem for your plan. So that's why I say, like, it's just as much about more about that than it is specific brands needed for the value. It's more about what we're creating, and that's why I continuously compare back to 1987 when they created the new 12-team 2-division. That's what allowed realignment to then happen. And so that's where the 19 strikes, in my opinion. You know, it's this prime number, stops them. You can't get your 20. You can't create your divisions. You can't have your new subdivision. You can't handle all these problems without giving your autonomous conferences of the subdivisions special powers to deal with these things individually. It's a much bigger strike, I think, than most people are giving it credit for. Most people, I think, are kind of still just doing, like, picking the teams, right? But I think it's bigger than that. And getting rid of the 5-year is vital, simply because no one else, as you said, other than Notre Dame, could afford to do that. And it's even worse if they do create the subdivision, because there's not going to be independence in the subdivision, the autonomy subdivision. So you would essentially be a subdivision below, operating basically with the G's in their tournament. It's not financially feasible for a lot of these schools. Like, you wouldn't do it. You wouldn't move. So it's actually very well crafted. If I'm right about this, and you see, like, where they're actually going in the future, because a person like, you know, Jack Swarbrick, for instance, he would know all these plans. Nick Saban would know all these plans. So, in my opinion, that's why they crafted this. Like, this is Notre Dame saying, if we're going to have to be forced to join the conference, well, we're not going lightly. You know, they're fighting the nail to the very end, and this has a lot of their fingerprints all over it.
Yeah, the networks, you know, are sitting back and they're looking at it, and frankly, they would be salivating if it stayed right where it is right now. If they have, you know, if this bill passed, they would be happy campers. And the reason why is because since the state of where we are right now in broadcasting is that anything that can keep me in a situation where I know I've got cost certainty helps get me through, you know, some very tough times because of the NFL deal, because of the Major League Baseball deal, because of a number of deals. And I know the Lackland, you know, Murdoch said that we're not going to move for the NFL. You know, if they want to jump ahead and open negotiations early, we're not going to do it. And frankly, he's basically lying, because it was Fox getting of the in '94, technically in '93, of the NFL that put them on the map, and it's the single biggest driver of cash for Fox, the entire network. So I know what he said in his statement to the shareholders. But if you look at it, right, a few days after that, it was announced in '94, in Detroit, CBS went from Channel 2 to Channel 60 because Detroit wanted Fox because they wanted the Lions. In Atlanta, Channel 5, which is where CBS was, went to Channel 46. So in at least 35 different markets, the Fox name and brand came into existence on former CBS stations because of the NFL. So I don't think that Lackland can sit there and kind of just say, oh well, we're not going to bend our knee to what they want. Well, if he needs to, they will. And if you have any problem with that, see Mark Lazarus over at TNT when he decided we're going to take a pass on the NBA, and we'll come back to them because we've been their partners for 35 years. Why would they not want to be with us?
CBS isn't really as much part of this right now because if this merger goes through, the NFL terms allow the NFL to call their deal into renegotiation because of the change of management, if I'm correct. Is that
right? Yeah.
And so that becomes interesting. Is that why this merger is on hold? I don't know.
No, there was the merger between Sky Dance and Paramount.
Right.
The merger happened because the merger stalled because there were two outstanding legal cases against it that a district judge put a halt to it for a period of time so that they could hear these appeals to why they shouldn't be allowed to merge.
But it definitely benefits them now in my opinion,
my point being, you're right, it benefits them. But the other point being that it wasn't because of college sports that they stopped.
But maybe they might be extending that situation because they have to provide the legal situation because it 100% benefits them. And if a big part of the plan, which is what I think for CBS to even do this, is to roll more heavily into college sports and kind of be not just college sports, but to be like a third Fox ESPN type of entity.
Well, if the Paramount deal goes through, they inherit the TNT deal,
correct,
which gives them Major League Baseball for the moment, which gives them NASCAR, which gives them what else?
Big East, the TNT is now into the CFP. They have some rights to the Big 12 now. So, it's a big stepping stone for them to not just college sports, but we're just talking basically college sports.
Right.
And it's a big stepping stone for them to become basically that third, equal to Fox and ESPN in this round.
Hey, Big Mountain, how you doing?
So that's why I kind of think it's probably not just Fox. If Fox does, because to what you're saying, they're not going alone. You can't. So that's why it makes me think that NBC is also kind of looking in the same direction. I would say CBS is probably pretty grateful right now that they're not done with the merger. ESPN, and also this is to be taken into account. NFL is a part owner in ESPN now,
right?
And ESPN has a big stake in the whole college football situation. And so in that essence, so does the NFL. So, it's only a 10% stake, but that also is on their bottom line too. So I would say maybe it behooves them to be okay, take a little time to do this, but we're still coming hard for what's ours when this is done.
Yeah, no, look, I don't disagree with that. I think I guess what I'm trying to say, and at the moment inarticulately,
No, you're doing good. That's awesome.
is that um, networks now have budgets, and
Yeah.
those budgets that they used to be able during the heyday of ESPN and the heyday of cable, for that matter, um, gave them what I'm not going to say it's unlimited, but they certainly gave them um, a massive amount of money that they could spend. Um, that's not the case anymore. There's a lot more indecision as to where the money's going to come from. Now there is some cable still there, okay,
Mm-hmm.
but it's below half of where it was, 5 years ago, and so that's an issue. The other issue is that you know the direct consumer um, payment deal, which is in essence a streaming type deal,
Mm-hmm.
is really, I mean, this app for ESPN, if it falls, if it crushes and doesn't hit the numbers that they needed to, that's going to affect ESPN tremendously.
Yeah.
The same is for Paramount. The same is for NBC with Peacock.
Mm-hmm.
The only people who have the money out there right now to sit down and figure out what to do is Apple, Amazon, and
We've
YouTube.
talked about
I don't
that.
think Netflix is going to be involved in college football.
No. But this is where this can be an open window. We've talked about, the potential and the future of
Mm-hmm.
ACC, ESPN, Apple.
Right.
I agree with you. And as you bring up the ESPN app and their need for that, that is something that Apple can help with.
Yeah.
I strongly feel like this window, and we're even seeing it with the amendment of like, give us 180 days, which is half a year to
Mm-hmm.
do it. So, like, if this is where the mindset is behind the scenes,
Mm-hmm.
we're talking about movement's going to need to happen quick. Announcements, the subdivision, the expansion of the CFP to not just one tournament but two tournaments.
Mm-hmm.
24 team up top, 12 team in the bottom. That's 34 games. This is that's a lot of content, valuable content now for these networks to get involved with. Now, I'm not saying that beats over the NFL. Absolutely not. But I do think with everything that you said, and you bring so much knowledge on that industry to the table, I think that helps them out a lot. I think that's pretty vital and important, even for the NFL as now as a partner with ESPN to say their ESPN is fighting. I don't necessarily think to stop 24, but to protect what they already have. Their ranking shows, all the shows that they put on. I mean, there's really good money in those. Like they have
Mhm.
fought for that. Like there's been pushback from the CFP already on those shows, and they have said no. Those are big shows for us. So that's what I think ESPN is doing is they don't want to lose ground in all these other things that they're part of with the CFP when this massive expansion happens, because Fox, CBS, and who knows, NBC, they're all looking to get some of these games and to move in. And I just think ESPN wants to maintain their stake. They want the rankings shows. They want all that goes on around this. So I think that's where this all ties in is timing. And I know it may not be like a popular opinion, but I honestly think that the NFL, if there's this short time window, they might give them the time to figure that out. Of course, that's going to cost them all in the end to give more leverage to the NFL.
Right.
But I mean, I don't think that it hurts them. And if it comes out like that they made it impossible to help solve this college sports situation, that's just not good PR. So, you just kind of step back and be like, okay, handle it, figure your thing out, and then we go to the table and we talk. So I think there's a lot pushing things to happen sooner than everyone
Well,
probably intended.
if you think about it this way, okay, and by the way, I am a big fan of the Big Mountain podcast. So just so you know,
Yeah, JY.
everybody should definitely check it out. These guys know what they're talking about. A lot of fun. Enjoy listening to them. The thing that the 180, right?
Mm-hmm.
The 180. Let's just say, for the sake of argument, that the 180 is cool with the NFL. They're like, okay, we can hold off to that.
Yeah.
Because technically their deal's not up until 32 anyway. They just have the opportunity to renegotiate and open it if they want, which they already have, told people they're going to do. But they can wait 180 days. They don't need that right now. The 180 days puts you right smack in the middle of the Major League Baseball discussions. It puts you in the middle of a number of other, a number of other sports that are in these people's portfolios. And it all goes back to the thing that I mentioned in the first part with regard to broadcasters, and that is really desperately needing to have cost certainties. And I think that's where they'll give them, meaning the networks will give them 90 days. But at the end of those 90 days, or I'm sorry, 180 days, but at the end of those, you're going to have some sort of resolution to whatever it is you want. Because that's when this clock starts ticking for the NFL, for the Major League Baseball, for other content that they have.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think everyone is going to have to find a way to do this quickly. But, the problem with that is, as we talked already earlier, this situation is setting up for a September vote. Okay, well, then that goes in the House and maybe doesn't pass or gets pushed down the line. At some point in time, everyone's going to have to face, like, at what point in time are we able to legally consider, like, this is not passing and we need to act because, let's say, the NFL is holding off because of these other windows that you're talking about for Major League Baseball. That's why I think they were about ready to move on the whole subdivision situation. Like I pointed out all the meetings and work they've been doing on it, and this held it up. This is why it went on pause. So I think that there's a lot that is on the precipice, ready to go. It's just a matter of when these decision makers feel comfortable enough to pull the trigger. And that's the question I certainly don't have an answer to. I don't know what you think on that, but as we take a look at all of these aspects that influence the decision, and looking at the stuff that they want to create, not just the value that's in college football right now.
Right.
Does that make sense to you? That
no, it makes sense. It's just that what we're seeing right now, ironically, as we talk about politics in the Senate, you've got FSU, you've got Clemson, you've got North Carolina, you've got, a handful of other universities. Utah's one, Arizona State, folks who, for all intents and purposes, I look at this as like these people are campaigning to get into conferences. There's been no indication that I'm aware of from either the Big Ten or the SEC that they're interested in any of these schools.
No, there hasn't been like direct showing.
So it's like, impress me to the point where why I should, if you're going to get, which the Big Ten is aspiring to, if you're going to get the kind of money they want, then I'm hearing the flute type Cajun in the background. Is it me practicing? The
Oh,
district.
there's someone in the background.
That's funny. I don't hear it, but if somebody would like to,
I think it was some feedback or something that was going
yeah,
in.
there's probably some feedback. I would, if you guys want to do some musical bits on here, I'm more than happy to have you come on and play. I mean, I enjoy a good classical music situation with the flute. That's good. Um, anyway, uh, I think that Fox wants the big time. They need the big time. They need that along with what they need with regard to the uh, NFL.
Mhm.
Those are their two big ratings boosters, and so we'll see how that particular um, deal plays out. So the lesser, and I know they're not going to want to hear it, but the lesser to them is the Big 12. They that one they feel, quote unquote, they can get on the cheap. Now I'm not saying they can get all of it, but
Sure.
they can get what they want.
I think the large majority of their value that they see out of the Big 12 is their whole plans with basketball, right? Like they've created their tournament with Big and Big
Right.
12 and Big East. So yeah, I don't think that they're ever going to. I think that like TNT, CBS will end up becoming the major partner there, but that's in the future, here or there. I don't think that they're ever going to let go of the Big 12. So to some degree,
Well, I
that
think
might actually be who they would want to join. Before, like, hey, are you going to get any more basketball schools? Even though that's not going to be what is a deciding factor for the presidents and for the conference. I do still think that they have some interest there. And
well, I'm not saying they don't have interest. What I'm saying is they, if Brett Yormark chooses to do what he said he could do, which is split the to do
yeah,
two things. One is to go rogue and say, okay, I'm not sitting down. I'm not talking to ESPN or Fox for um, an extension of the existing contract, but I'm looking to do the breaking it away and going out to bid for the football, and he also wants to break it apart. So you're bidding for football and basketball. I don't. I think that's a very big gamble on his part. And look, let me say, and I've said it before, I think Brett Yormark's a very bright guy. It's not that I think that he's silly. He's not. He's a great promoter. He's a P.T. Barnum. But what I think is dangerous is the splitting apart of those two entities. Because what does the football have? I don't think that because of the fact they don't have a big brand in the football, I think that there's considered a tier two, gotta have, right? And they could be a tier one for USA, they could be a tier one for TNT from that standpoint. But
mhm.
they, the net for Fox, I don't think it's that. I mean, what it does is it gives Fox backup, content. It's not worth it. It's definitely worth it, but at what price? And I think that's where when you tend to not sit down in those areas, and anybody in the Big 12 can tell you this, when you sit down and talk to your exclusive partners, and that exclusivity lasts for anywhere from 90 days to um, kind of like half a year, depending upon how the deal is done. Um, and you basically say thanks but no thanks. We're taking them out. Then these people who you've worked with for the past 7, you could argue that deal between Fox and ESPN kept the Big 12 alive. Um, so at that point, if you say no, we want you to get in line with everybody else, that would be a mistake. I don't know if that's not that Brent needs my help. He can do this on his own. He doesn't need it. And God knows I can be wrong, but I don't think you want to. I think you want to sit down with those guys and try to figure something out, rather than take it to bid where I'm not sure that they're going to be as excited because they had you in cost certainty, and now they don't.
Yeah. like I said, I think one has to really kind of look to the future and
Mhm.
honestly try to predict the future to realize where value for them would be. I think,
Mhm.
if I'm right about the A4 tournament, 2014, six from
Sure.
each conference, it's going to considerably increase um, the visibility of the Big 12 and their programs.
Mhm.
And people say, well, why would the P2 do that? It's because the way governance is now set up in D1.
Mhm.
That doesn't mean payouts will be the same,
Mhm.
but access likely will. And that increases value then for whomever is partnered with the Big 12, even in the regular season, because
Right.
you're going to have your divisional races that lead up to that.
Mhm.
And that doesn't mean that Fox favors them, or obviously, not. I just think that there's going to be some increased value in this future that isn't maybe all that evident right now. But these networks would know about this.
Well, yeah. The other part of
So,
the equation with regard to the networks is, and again, I'm not saying that Fox wouldn't. Everybody's going to get a bump in pay until the ACC is 2036, but everybody's going to get a bump in pay. The key is how much can I expect to get, and why, if I'm adding extra mouths to feed, um, how much more are you going to give me? And I think that's some of the conversations that are being spoken about right now.
sure. Yeah. I mean,
I know Jim Phillips has had extensive talks um, with ESPN about if we lose X, Y, and Z, and we backfill with X, A, B, and C, um, you know how what kind of hit is that we're going to take for that? And those are kind of the scenarios that are floating around the ACC.
sure.
What's floating around the Big 12 is how many of these ACC brands could we bring over
Yep.
at the right price? And then you've got
It's probably
the
why they've not even they wouldn't even discuss Memphis when Memphis put it. So it was like they're just not even open to any other things until they see what happens with the ACC.
well, and this is another thing that we have to look at. Networks are funny about you know they look at growth stocks, right? Growth, growth, um, growth from a standpoint of not where's the school right now, but where's it going to be 5, 10, 15 years down the road?
You look at them kind of like stocks.
Yeah. Um, and of course, everybody um, accuses me of being a USF shill. Um, and in some cases, I am not going to deny that.
You have the right to have bias, just like
Yeah, I
everyone
have the
else.
right to bias. I don't use it in my writing, but I definitely in my fun posts over there. There's a lot of teams, who deserve from the Mountain West. There's a lot of teams that deserve it from out, in what is now the new PAC situation. So there's a lot of G5s who are SG6s, whatever you want to call them, who are making strides money wise that can be beneficial to conferences down the line. Now, all this silliness about USF to the Big Ten is nuts. I have no um, I have no uh, inclination to believe, or delusion to think that's ever going to happen. But I think that one of the things I don't want to see is I don't want to see an American, a Mountain West, um, a new version of the Pac-12. I don't want to see these schools and these institutions and the MAC in there as well. Um, I don't want to see them go away, and I don't want to see them being rendered irrelevant. And I'm hoping that there's less movement in the Power Four, if you want to call it that, than the the campaigners out there who've already slotted schools in there. Um, I don't want to see that destroy even more some of the good conferences out there that um, are considered outside the Power Four conference.
Mhm. Yeah, I kind of think that they're all going to be fine just based upon what I've seen coming. But I know some of what I say on that regards isn't um, enjoyable to hear to some, and that's understandable. In terms of USF value, I agree with you in terms of like them not going to the big, but I do have some bias towards the big, as you know, growing up in
Mhm.
Iowa, being a Hawkeye fan. So I'm used to times when everyone just hated on the big. So when anyone is like, we want to join, I'm like, oh well, I'm not going to sit here and poo on that. That's cool. And I know just from like my time of Iowa, people would look at Tampa as like, hey, look, we get a bowl trip in fall.
Well, you've been
But
there. You've been there for the bowl trip in the
yeah,
January, so it wouldn't be that bad of a thing.
but that's probably not. I mean, that's not what
But okay,
is.
so you're a big. Let me throw this one at you as a Big Ten fan,
Okay.
and I've had the blessing of being someone who did the Big Ten, football games, the direct game of the week. So I've been on all those campuses, and to me, getting into the Big Ten is like if you and I had the money and had the credentials that one would expect to join Augusta National, and we want to be part of Augusta National,
Mhm.
and we may, as I say, we may tick off all the boxes. But if Augusta National doesn't want us, it doesn't matter how successful we've been. It doesn't matter how much money we've created, how much our
There is perception involved.
yeah, exactly. And
Yeah.
because I know, having been around those schools and still have great relationships with those schools, that they're not overwhelmingly in a rush to do anything.
No.
They're still trying to figure out, and I've had this told to me a number of times, how to figure out how to deal with this monster of traveling back and forth. And it's active. I mean, at the end of the day, and this, it goes back a ways, that the Big Ten and and what used to be the Pac-12, they didn't play a football game past the weekend before Thanksgiving because of the tests that that you would take,
Mm.
final exams, if you will, before the holidays. It was only, I don't know what, 20, maybe 30 years ago that the Big Ten and the Pac, well, maybe it's 40 years ago, the Big Ten and the Pac allowed other schools to go to bowl games. It usually was just the Big Ten champion and the Pac 12 champion would play in the Rose Bowl, and the rest of the teams had no ability to go to a bowl game. So, I do believe that Petiti may have a list of strategic teams or universities that they may want to make members, but I don't think they're a tremendously. Um, I don't think they're in an urgent pattern to do it, and I don't think. I mean, Sankey said the other day, we got 16 teams. I could live with 16 teams. You know, you know. I know when they onboarded Texas and Oklahoma that, as far as a couple of presidents that I know, said that's it. I mean, we're good. We don't need any more. So I don't. Again, it goes all the way back to what does who's driving this bus, right?
Mhm.
Is it the FSUs of the world who want to be part of something driving the bus, or is it the Big Ten and SEC saying, "Look, it's great. You guys can all lay, you can all stand there and you can negotiate in public, and you can do everything you want to do, campaign your situations. But we're not sure at the end of the day we want to do this.
I agree. A lot to unpack there. I definitely think that that's where the big would be, but I also think that's where they didn't want to do Oregon and Washington this year, and I think
Right.
that probably was part of like a later plan. Like I think that the big and the SEC were both wanting to be at 16,
Mm-hmm.
and then if these plans go forward, because remember this subdivision plan was presented as early as I think even earlier, but by President Baker himself in 2023. Sure. So this has been underway for a while,
right?
And I think that they would have probably preferred to sit at 16 and then do like a 4-team bump with all this new pay coming. The same that the SEC is going to have.
Mm-hmm.
But that's where this SEC has kind of had one up on them, is they've been paying they're going to be paying two less teams, two less members. But I do think that they want to expand for this situation. I just don't think that they were really prepared to do it this early.
No,
especially considering the cost of exit from the ACC and the scaling plan there. But we do have the evidence of Oregon and Washington where if a situation arises where they see, look, we just have to go early, then there is some evidence that they will figure it out and they will work with their network partners.
Well, that was an emergency circumstance.
This is more of an emergency circumstance. That was just because they didn't want Washington to get stuck in like the Big 12. Right. But this is like if they get a window of opportunity here, that's even more so. Like this is like dealing with the Congress. So
right. Yeah, I don't know. Can I see them looking at schools? Yeah, but I don't understand where. And again,
from NBC,
the
finishing part of that is NBC has made it known that they're not real happy with what they've had so far in the Big Ten situation, which, is probably a bit of an overplay, but there is push. Like they have to make these other partners now happy, not just Fox. So that's where I think the pressure comes from. Like NBC is going to want a Southern location for home games, late night, when things are getting colder elsewhere. I do believe that there is pressure on the Big Ten to expand at some point in time, and it's just the congressional situation may be speeding up that process, but we don't really know until
it happens.
Yeah.
Why don't you take a couple minutes, because I know you've got to get going here soon, and explain the subdivisions. A lot of people are not understanding how that kind of, you've been on top of this since day one of that. Why don't you give us your read on where that is at this point?
Well, the subdivision, in my opinion, this has been something that the power conferences have wanted for some time. In fact, it goes back as far as when they seemingly were always looking to somehow go from 5 to 4. The original target was the Big 12. Pac kind of jumped the gun, kind of made themselves a little bit of a black sheep. In the end, they end up becoming the one that gets divided up. So now they're at the 4. So now we go forward. The subdivision plan, what they call is the autonomy subdivision, that's based on their own agenda notes for the membership committee that has been meeting on it, would be to give the conferences conference level decision making. When people talk about breakaway this, breakaway that, this is probably the most relevant actual work that they're doing in regards to that, because you talk about CBAs. Do conferences have to do individual CBAs, individual transfer policies? A lot of decisions for them will go to the conference level. It's an entirely different subdivision, and subdivisions do not play each other in the postseason. So the CFP defaults to NCAA rules. So by default, they would end up having to create a second playoff. There would be 2 playoff tournaments because they have members. Everyone in the FBS are members. That's not going to go away. So they would have to create tournaments for all of their members. So it's really this overarching future of giving the 4 power conferences, if you want to call them, their ability to like individually approach these situations, and just instead of always trying to find one size fits all solutions.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where it's autonomy, not independence. If there's a line to really explain to people what this is about, it's that it's autonomy, not independence. It's to give them some of the powers of being independent without the problems of leaving the NCAA. It's why they were given the governance in August by the rest of D1 in order to protect, the college basketball tournament, in order to keep everyone together in the NCAA. I mean, those schools are still part of the House settlement with the NCAA.
Mm-hmm.
So where does that get busted up if they try to break away? There's so many reasons for them not to break away, but they gave them this power to create at their will as long as they vote together. And so that's, if you look at the membership committee, it was formed in January when the A4 basically got their new governing weight in Division I. It met every month leading up until June, twice in one of the months. And in every meeting, they met to figure out the criteria for this new subdivision. So, and in their latest meeting, they put it on pause where they were watching the governance situation and basically waiting for this to get figured out. So it's my opinion, they're pretty much ready to go on this. And with that, you have to have plans for the CFP. You have to have plans on how you formulate your conferences going forward into that. And so that's why I say that there's a lot more going on under the surface involved with this than what gets reported, because no one really reports on this for whatever reason. So that's why I use that in pretty much everything I look at going forward. Now, if I'm wrong in that, then I'm going to be pretty much off the mark. But that's based off of what their actual work is. Their own NCAA reported agendas.
I was going to say, you can go online and read it. I mean,
I have a post that walks you right through. I have it. I think it might even be my pinned post that walks you right into their website, right to where the membership committee is. To click it, to go down. You can download the PDFs. You can actually see what it is. You can see who the members are who are there working on it. So this isn't one of those things where you have to wait for someone to report it. You just have to be willing to just, do the clicks and go in there and find it. And it's right there. There is reporting on it. You can, Dellinger was the one who really broke that story back in 23.
Right.
A whole entire article about it. And when you look at all the details in it that were in that President Baker's proposal, a lot of those are already in place. So they're technically already in the process of putting that proposal in place. It's just some of the items in it, which were all supposed to be just for the autonomy subdivision, like being able to sign NIL deals with your players. Well, it sounds to me like the rest of FBS also wanted that too. So they ramped that out early for everyone to be part of. But it's all connected with this subdivision plan. It's pretty all encompassing.
Yeah, and it actually makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I mean it solves their problems without this. I mean, sure it'll create some other problems, but leaving the NCAA creates so many problems for them. Just with their own states, with damage they do to other schools because of the tournament. Legal damages, legal issues, that there's no way these individuals want to bring that on themselves. I mean, remember, these are individuals making decisions, families, they got lives. Like, they probably are looking forward to kind of getting done with all of this. Whereas if they leave the NCAA, that's a whole other big, massive legal chapter. And a lot of work you have to figure out yourself. So they finally got what they've been fighting for since 2014.
Mm-hmm.
That just happened in August. So we're still in the very early stages of them unrolling what they have just now gotten the ability to unroll. And a big part of that, in my opinion, is the subdivision. So there is information there from the NCA that directly shows their work on it, and people can find that for themselves without reporting if no one's going to report on it.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes you have to do research.
Yeah.
Well, God forbid.
A dig. Got to do a little digging.
Yep. So, well, I'm getting. I know you got to get going here soon.
Yeah.
So, tell you what, this is the shameless plug part of the program. Go ahead and tell people where they can find you, and greatly appreciate you joining me this afternoon. It was always it's always a pleasure. Always a lot of fun. We have good back and forth dialogue on things, and you always bring something to the table, and I'm grateful for that.
Well, I always appreciate it. Anytime you reach out saying, "Hey, you want to come on?" It's an immediate yes for me, and I move my schedule in order to accommodate.
Well, we're going to talk baseball soon. We're definitely going to talk baseball.
That's good, because I got a little something for that too, as you know.
Yep.
That's exciting times for baseball fans, and for someone who just likes doing the realignment stuff like me.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, we got talking that too. But you can find me. I'm not really talking baseball yet, but we will be. But I'm on X, Immaculate View, just under the name Immaculate. I don't do my own show anymore. I used to be involved more in that. I pretty much just go on with you or with as you folks might see in chat, the Big Mountain Podcast with JY and those boys. I like to talk with them as well on occasion, but it's mostly all on X. I just present my analysis that I pretty much do for myself, but other people have really kind of been like, "Hey, keep going." So I present it there. I have on X. It's sometimes difficult to get viewership. So, if folks want, I do put up highlights in my pin post just if they want to kind of get the gist of these things, like the post where it guides people to actually dig in and go into the NCA website and find this information. That's basically what I do on X. I just try to make some sense of all this as someone who is not really tied in with anybody.
That goes back to joking, like, when you do make senses, please let me know. I don't have any clue.
Well, I have found from discussions with you that you help me make sense of things as much, not saying necessarily more than anyone else, but as much as anybody else. So that's why I always enjoy coming on. Every single time I learn something that kind of affects my perception and view of it. So
I think that it's a mutual thing. I think sometimes you just need to sit down and take a look at it and go, you know what, I get it now. I didn't think about that, but now I know that's the right way to go.
Yeah, I 100% I agree. Like you have changed my perspective and thought process on some of this. So I always appreciate coming on. Love to do it again.
Well, we're gonna find you. Don't worry.
So, but like you said, I got to get rolling. But I am definitely always looking forward to the next time.
Well, that was wonderful that you joined us, and we had a lot of fun. And I'll tell you what, I will. Where's my thing? There it is. We're getting feedback from someplace. Anyway, real quick, have a great day, everybody. Have a nice weekend, and we'll see you next week. And Immaculate, thanks so much.
Take care.